So I'm thinking of writing a new self-help book. Not really, just setting up my story. And before you understand the title of my self-help book, I have to explain a word in it. So I moved to Texas in 1973 for junior high school, and I go to gym class on my first day in Texas, and the gym coach says, anybody involved in a fracas will have to stay after class. And if you stay after class, you take off your shirt, and the gym coach is going to throw these little red balls at you until you're red spotted and you go back to class, and this is supposed to teach you not to be in a fracas. So of course, I grew up in New York. I don't know what a fracas is. I also grew up in New York where corporal punishment was outlawed in about 1840, so the idea of the coach throwing balls at me did not excite me. So I go home and ask my parents, what is a fracas? And of course, they don't know. There's no internet. There's no English to Texas dictionary. But it turns out it's fracas with a Texas accent, which leads us to the point of my story, which is the name of my self-help book is It Takes Two Nut Jobs to Have a Fracas. And here's my example to show that. I had a student in class a while back, and he was a smart kid, very, very argumentative, wrong about everything, unfortunately. And while I was giving my lectures, he would interrupt me, and he would argue at a level well beyond the scope of the class. And while I actually wouldn't have minded going to lunch with him to argue, the rest of the class was bored out of their mind, and he bugged them. So he'd raise his hand, and you'd hear this audible, oh, from the class. And he would ask question after question after question. So I sent him an email. An email said, dear student, I really appreciate your intellectual curiosity. I would love for you to come by during office hours and discuss your issues, but the rest of the class isn't as deeply informed as you are. They don't understand your questions. I'm terribly sorry. I'm going to have to ask you to limit your comments to 3 comments a day. And you would hope a normal student would say, well, okay, and they'd look in the mirror and go, geez, I was talking too much. Not this kid, of course. And what this really shows is how we kind of have our own personality, our own attitude, and employers are trying to figure out what our personality and our attitude is. So I send this email to the kid. I'm expecting something, maybe he's going to ignore me, maybe he's going to be quiet, maybe he's going to say, okay. I get back this 2-page screed, and the gist of it was, I can't tell him when to talk or not. He pays his tuition. If he has to come to class, he gets to talk. And he said if I'm not going to let him talk in class, he wants to be tested only over the book, and he's not coming to class. And he stretches this out over a 2-page email. So then we got to think about the title of my book. It Takes Two Nut Jobs to Have a Fracas. And what the temptation is to do would be tell him he has to come to class because I'm in a position of authority, right? Or I could tell him to take the test over the book, and I could make this really, really hard test, so I kind of stick it to him. But I try to live by the point of my own, stated objectives and my rules and so forth. So I sent him back an email that said, dear student, I appreciate your point of view. I look forward to seeing you in class. And I believe if I would have said anything else, I would have developed a huge problem with this kid, and essentially a fracas would have broken out, of which I would have been responsible. So I try to think, how do I not elevate things to the point of a problem? So whenever we find ourselves in a personality conflict, or whenever we have tension with someone, can't control the way we act, the way the other person acts, so we can only control the way that we interact. And as luck has it, about 3 years later, get another email from the kid, and what he wanted to know was, would I write a letter of recommendation for him? So I sent out an email, dear student, was a joy having you in class. However, you may recall when I asked you to be quiet in class, you told me no. So I can't recommend you because attitude is very, very important, and if I recommend you, it's gonna reflect on me. And really what I did was a trick, because what I wanted him to send me an email that said, dear professor, I'm terribly sorry. I've learned since then. I should have never sent you that email. Then I would have recommended him. But of course, I got another screed. Takes 2 nut jobs to have a fracas. That's my story.